everyone, welcome to the future of project management. This is Samir Penkar, and today we have with us Latha Swamy. She is a transformation and consultant and leader who helps companies scale, adopt, and transform the organization using the principles of Agile, Lean, and Scrum. So, thanks, Latha, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Samir. Thanks for
Great.
having me.
You know, when we met in December at the SAFE SPC class, and we were going around and doing introductions, you said something very interesting in your introduction. And you said that, Agile and SAFE is the best thing that happened to you in your life. So how's that?
Um, well, the kind of work I do, what I do, with my profession and my business, it's something that, just makes me jump out of my bed in the morning, right? And I keep going all day, every day, work with many different clients in various parts of the country, various parts of the world I travel. And one thing that I keep bumping up against is like the people's desire to make a difference in their company. The act of leadership. I'm so moved. I'm so thrilled and moved by the act of leadership that I see everywhere. People's commitment, wanting to make a difference in their company, in their department, or wherever they can make an impact. And those are the kind of people who call me, who invite me to come and work with them. So I have this profound privilege of meeting some really great leaders
Okay.
and making a difference along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was just such a quick introduction.
Absolutely. Yes.
You are based in Silicon Valley,
Yes.
and you work with such a range of companies, like
Mhm.
from Zynga to GE and Visa.
Mhm.
I'm just curious to know uh, if you've seen a change in mindset in terms of agile within someone like Zynga, who is sort of a startup, Silicon Valley culture, and
Mhm.
someone like GE, Visa, FedEx, who is heavily corporate America. I'm just curious. Have you seen the difference in culture in agile in these two
Oh,
places?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like the cultural differences are so varied between product development companies, high tech companies, startups, in general, even within the Silicon Valley. Like when
Mm.
I go to a startup in San Francisco, it's a very different culture
Yeah.
than a startup in South Bay, right? Like in Silicon
Correct.
Valley.
Correct.
And they both are startups, they both are high tech companies, but the kind of people who work in each one is very different. The culture is very different. I love the rich tapestry of cultural nuances that I get to play and swim in every day. I'm right now in Hartford, Connecticut,
Mm.
in East Coast, working with a very big company here on rolling out multiple agile release trains
Okay.
and bringing transformation to them. It's a very different culture here. And starting with the weather to a whole new wardrobe, to come and work here, smart wool and cashmere. No, kidding aside, but really, there's a vast difference in culture between startup versus established companies. One thing that's common for both of them is they both have a desire to deliver value quickly.
Mm.
The startups, what happens with them is the kind of startups that invite me is like about 100, 200 people. They've
Okay.
grown from 10 or 20 people to 30 or 40, where the CEO or the founders
Mm.
kind of get to know like the first 40 or 50 people, and then they suddenly bursted into 200, 300 people, right?
Right.
Where they couldn't remember the names of the people.
Right. Right.
So what they lack is the structures
Okay.
to deliver value quickly.
Hmm.
They don't have shortage of great ideas
Correct.
and an innovative culture, but the thing is they just lack the structure to put
Hmm.
the value out, features in market quickly.
Okay.
On the other side spectrum, like companies like the Fortune 50, like GE or FedEx or something, for them they're very established. They have established product lines,
Hmm.
established structures,
Correct.
but the structures themselves come in the way of them delivering value quickly.
Yeah.
So, and usually these are the companies that's been trying Agile, doing Agile for a year or so, and haven't had the kind of impact that they wanted to have. That's when they call me. Most of them, almost 80-90% of my clients have been doing Agile, and they're missing something. They couldn't just quite get the benefit of it. And then they call me like a year into it. And rather than companies freshly thinking of Agile calling me, right? That occasionally happens too. But the big companies, what happens is their structures and their policies and the implicit rules that are there that obstruct them from delivering value.
Right.
So they want to be innovative and nimble like the startup. In delivering value. The startups want to be established with a proper structure like the big companies.
Right.
So, but they both have a common concern. They want to take care of their customers and deliver value quickly.
Right. So, you mentioned you normally go in where they've been doing Agile for a while, but they haven't been getting the benefits of it.
Yes.
What are some of the top two reasons? Why don't they get the benefits?
Well, the top two reasons I'll say, like the one on the big established companies, what's happening is they just like do pockets of Agile in different groups, and they kind of lack the structure of scaling Agile enterprise level in delivering the value stream, right? That's where like the safe constructs, the scaled Agile framework constructs really make a difference there for them. That's one main reason. For the small companies, the like a typical Scrum works really well for them because they're smaller in scale. Yet they still are big enough where they need that common handshake between product and engineering, where Safe again works well for them. I've used Safe for startups.
Okay.
For 200 people startups, because the feature level construct becomes the handshake for them.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's one main reason where it's kind of happens in pockets rather than whole. Right? And the second main reason is the alignment is missing. They don't know that. The alignment between leadership and the program level and the teams, that's missing. And that's why Agile hasn't worked. It's nothing to do with the Agile, but the alignment is missing, right? That's where the transformation technology I bring in, which is much beyond Agile or Lean.
Correct. In the bigger companies, you mentioned about structure a little bit.
Yes.
And especially in the larger, Fortune companies, they have PMOs, project management offices.
Yes.
And there's been so much discussion around what's the role of the PMO in this new world of Agile and transformation and safe and scaling. What is your view? What is the role of PMO, or what should it be? Aspirational too. Where should it go?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I hear an echo. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I think it's good.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So the role of PMO and the project managers is actually pretty critical with the Agile transformation. I have the profound privilege of working with many PMO organizations. I've had leading Safe, the 2-day change management course called Leading Safe and Scaled Agile Framework. That's mainly for the change agents. I have led those courses specifically for a room full of PMO project managers. Okay. Right? Imagine. And they all went for certification, and almost 90% got certified in the first shot. So that was like a complete alteration, right? That particular enterprise, that Agile transformation accelerated like crazy because the project managers are now lean thinking Agile leaders, right? They got transformed themselves into lean thinking Agile leaders. Now, the project managers, program managers, PMO, they all have a role to play in Safe and in Agile. For example, some of the inexperienced ones, some of the junior level project managers, if they have a servant leadership kind of mindset, a servant leader mindset, that's the one thing I would be looking for. As long as they have a servant leader mindset, I can train them, to be an Agile program manager. Okay. So once they have if they don't have a servant leadership mindset, then I have to do a little bit more transformation work, right? To alter their mindset. And then they start to come from that place. So the junior ones usually fit in well as a scrum master, for one or two teams at the team level. The bit more experienced project or program managers that fit in as a release train engineer at the program level construct. The ones that are more of a PMO kind, they fit in well as a value stream engineer, which is a new construct in 4.0, right? And then we have this PPM, program portfolio management construct in SAFE at the portfolio level. So sometimes the really experienced PMO organization, heads of them, are part of that PPM, where they're accountable for funding and governance and prioritization of the portfolio. So they really play a role along in all the four levels, depending upon how deep they want to go, how much bandwidth they have and experience they have, in managing programs. Yeah, the project management mindset is very much needed actually instead of skilled agile, especially skilled agile framework. So I usually put everybody to full use in in leveraging that. We need everybody and anybody. I usually don't advocate when I go to my clients. One of the first things I say is, "We're not going to hire any new people." Right? It is not about automatically saying let's hire more people, right, to deliver on what's needed. Really, let's use the people we got. Unless there's a particular skill set that's missing, we'll go after it, right? If we cannot train anybody or anything. So anyway,
like in Minneapolis, there's Target. Target is based here, and they have decided fully to go the agile route, and they really are getting away from project teams and going to product teams. And they had a big shake-up in terms of even in their sort of team structures. And a lot of, they laid off a lot of, PMs and business analysts too. And that sort of really set people on a nervous train to say, what's going to happen? Is this the new trend? But that's, that's a unique situation. Not everyone is going that route or that aggressively in that space.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an easy route to completely transform, change all the roles, right? So to fit into the new model, that's like a shock and awe kind of approach. The other way is like start with where we are and evolve continuously with continuous improvement. And see which project managers fare in these roles and which ones struggle a bit, right? And give them the appropriate. There's also release manager role available. Some of them who don't want to like deal too much with people or teams, they can just like deal with the launch activities and stuff like that. Depending upon people's passions and their skill set, we can really give them the right structures. I think that's what's missing with the current project management way of doing things. It's a different mindset and a different structure that supports that. There are, when I say structures, there are different ways they do things. They use certain tools and templates and certain meetings and protocols on how a project manager works today in a regular non-agile environment that supports them to keep their project management practices in place. Now, all we need is like to transform the culture. It's based on behaviors, right? The behavior that we take, and to alter the behavior, we need a structure that pulls for a new behavior. So those are the types of structures I create for them. So inside of those structures, they automatically take those actions. It's the behavior we're talking about that automatically produces certain outcomes. That's very consistent to an agile thinking. So it becomes not so much about the person, but it's about managing the agreements inside of the structures, the behaviors, the actions inside of the structure, more so than the people or their job title, so to speak. Yeah.
You do a lot of work with SAFE. And can you remember your first agile release train?
I can never forget. Yes, it was back in 2011 November. I started with a year-long transformation with Visa in Foster City, California. That's where I launched my first release train, actually three of them, three release trains instead of this program. And again, they've been doing Agile for a whole year at that time.
Okay.
And they couldn't get their product out to market. They were delayed by a year. And that's when they called me in as a transformation consultant to see what's missing there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you remember most about that? Tell us a little bit about how.
Without violating any confidentiality,
Yes.
The very first day when I went there, I saw in a room, it was like a 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. meeting in a big room that had no windows, but the whole walls were filled with post-it notes. Okay. And there was a big projector. And there were people sitting around the table, about 15 people sitting around the table.
Okay.
And what was projected at that 1 p.m. meeting, they called it Scrum of Scrums. They didn't know the name. They called it Scrum of Scrums. What was projected was Jira tickets. And the tickets had bugs in them, bug information.
Okay.
And nobody was looking at the walls with the stickies that were half stuck, crooked, all that, multiple colors and everything. And what I noticed was this group of people, apparently this 15 or 12 to 15 people, were meeting every day for 1 hour from 1 to 2 p.m. But the people who were meeting are vice presidents and directors.
Okay.
And what they were looking at is bugs. Jira tickets that had bugs information.
Right.
So right then and there, I knew something is off here. Such a senior level leadership team shouldn't be spending 1 hour every day.
Correct.
In looking at bugs. That too through Jira.
Yeah.
Ticket, right? So that was my first experience. I can never forget. I walked into that meeting.
Wow.
As my very first engagement.
Cool.
Yeah.
You are also a Kanban certified accredited coach.
Yes, I'm a Kanban trainer and a coach
too. Yes. So, can you remember one engagement or one instance where you really applied Kanban very effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. That I created recently, like I worked with the CIO. We created this whole notion of the demand wall. Okay, all the demand that's coming to this IT group, and categorize the demand into kind of like 4 different buckets, so to speak, right? The one of the first principles of Kanban, I would say, is bring visibility, right, to things. So this is about bringing visibility to all the demand that's coming at IT with a fixed capacity they have, for example. So the demand. I brought in a notion of the 2x2, like a matrix where planned, unplanned, scheduled, unscheduled. Okay, those are the 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Some could be planned and scheduled. Planned means it's in the timeline. Scheduled means you have resources, right?
Okay.
You have also, one is time factor, another one is the resource factor.
Okay.
So I just brought in the inquiry of 2x2 thinking to them, to the CIO and his staff. And what came out of it was all this stickies we created, post-it stickies of all the demand that everybody were working on different things.
Wow.
And what it turned out to be, the planned and scheduled are the ones that were budgeted. Bulk of the IT budget belongs to the planned and scheduled, where they're supposed to work on these business initiatives that the business has asked them to work on.
Correct.
What they noticed was about 67% of the times they were working on unplanned and unscheduled.
Yeah.
These are the things that we never planned for, but everybody's reacting to it. It's a production defect that fire, everybody knows. This, and there is no retrospective after that to learn from it. So the mistakes are happening again and again. So 60-70% almost of the time is spent on the quadrant that they were expected to spend 16% or something. That was the hypothesis that the CIO believed.
Wow.
But when we brought the visibility by a Kanban style of all the projects and requests coming to IT and mapping it to the 4 quadrants, this was one of the big eye-opening things that they saw, right?
Wow.
And one of the things then the second principle is limit the WIP. work in process.
Mm-hmm.
When I brought that thinking to them, the CIO was able to say, you know what? And then he started putting the names of asked everybody in IT to come to the wall. It was a big wall outside his office.
Wow.
And to put the names of which project they are working on.
Mm-hmm.
And many people are working on many things.
Right.
They have about like 67 items in the wall where their total capacity is only 56 people.
Oh.
So you could say how many are working on so many things, right? So one of the things is limiting WIP. So he said, given our available capacity and our available skill set, we can do only 3 things on this quadrant, right? So he went to the business, its counterparts from the other parts of the company, and said, I can only do 3 big things for this next 3 months.
Right.
Which ones you want me to focus?
Correct.
And I had that alignment out of the 12 or 13 things that was there and nobody was working on it and causing a lot of upset with the business. Just bringing visibility and limiting WIP conversation brought in a negotiation to settle for the top 3 important things that this IT group has to focus on.
Right.
And then he set aside the capacity for those 3 things and said they cannot be taken to all the other things.
Correct.
They have to focus on only these 3.
Right.
And then we brought in special Kanban training to these groups, and I set up the boards for them and all that, right? But this is just bringing in couple of distinctions. Made a huge impact where suddenly things started flowing, things started getting done, rather than it being things everybody's working on, everybody's busy to producing results.
Yeah. That visibility is such an eye opener.
That's visibility.
When you see it on the board and oh my God, we thought this is how we are working on. And no.
Yeah, it took a lot of socialization for a week with him and his staff to come to this wall first. Where you could write on the wall. It's one of those painted walls, right?
Yeah.
I would like talk about like different things they're doing, and then we built the actual Kanban wall, and then we started putting the stickies, and I had all the supplies. They got me a special ladder, like so I could climb up 10 feet and put stickies, and then everybody started coming to the wall. Correct. So it became like the truth, the wall of truth, so to speak. And then the CIO started inviting his colleagues, his peers from different business units to come to the wall. Want something, then come to my wall and see which one I should not work on. We can put this in, right? It became like trust happens when there is transparency. Correct. That's one of the key things, right? So now people started trusting this group for what they're saying, what they're committing to, because they know by month the view.
This is so cool.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I have read some of your posts, some of the postings you've done on LinkedIn, and looked at your website. Your approach to consulting or transformation is not a quick fix approach. You want people to really think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and take them on that journey. Tell us some, maybe just elaborate on that, the why. I'm really interested in the why piece. How do you facilitate that? How do you help people find why they're doing it and start thinking about those ideas?
Yeah, but one of the things that really works is like for people to think for themselves, right? So this kind of goes against the rule of any consultant, right? The term consultant means you're there to provide answers, provide solutions, but that's not mostly I do. I make them think for themselves, so they can come up with much better solution than I can ever come up with, given that they are close to the work. And it's their work, right? But I do take them through a very rigorous thinking process. I call it the inquiry. It's kind of like the inquiry is like where you ask the right question more so than coming up with the right answer. There is no right or wrong answer in an inquiry, but it kind of like I create a space where people are free to think, critical thinking, not just the thoughts that come for us, but really they're free to think deeply and critically apply the concepts I'm presenting to them to their life and to their day-to-day work. And so they can think through critically. And then I create a safe space where they're free to express it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the inquiry has two things. One is like it doesn't have a right or wrong answer. Any answer is valid. And then there's a particular listening that's needed in the room from others, where in everybody's answers can be shared openly, where it won't be judged or evaluated, right? Or shot down, so to speak. And something beautiful emerges in the process when you bring a bunch of diverse people together in a room, put them through a rigorous inquiry, and let them have a conversation about it. Something brilliant emerges out of it, where they get to say in the end, they came up with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
There is ownership from them, because they were the source of coming up with whatever model or structure that made sense for them. And there's no need for me to go through any change management or anything after that, because they came up with it, they own it, they embrace it, and they pull for it, right? Rather than I have to push anything on them.
How long does this take? Does it take a couple of meetings, weeks, months?
Sometimes it depends on the type of work I'm doing. Sometimes with leadership team, like with the, for example, with Visa, I had to do a 3-day offsite to this particular leadership group. It took three days for me. The first day was all about getting them to a place where they can actually talk to each other.
And not look at the Jira bugs.
Yeah, exactly. And to really not be so upset with each other. Well, it is all about promises made and not kept. It just causes upset with people, right? Or things done where they haven't had a chance to express it. When people are not given an opportunity to express and say what's there for them, it shows up in weird ways. Like a passive aggressiveness or whatever. So yeah, sometimes it takes that long, where the whole first day the work was about creating this body of leadership where they can stand together. And the second day is about them creating a powerful future, a product vision, and a roadmap that they can be aligned to. And the third day, they brought in their direct reports into the fold. So it became like from 9 people on the first 2 days to 45 people on the third day, right? Where they got to communicate that to their direct reports, right? Product and strategy and engineering and IT and everybody leadership. So that kind of work took about 3 days of offsite. Sometimes it just takes 3 hours. Like a few months ago, I was sitting with another Silicon Valley startup, about 8 or 9 senior leadership people, senior VPs, sitting together, and we were looking at for 3 hours, right? We were looking mainly focusing on certain specific aspect about funding and budgeting, budgeting of projects versus coming from a value stream approach, right? They go through strenuous Excel spreadsheets, tons of them, tons of rows and columns and capacity planning and funding and all that, right? Project by project, to really alter this 8 or 9 people's mindset to one of coming from a lean agile thinking. Just from that couple of construct, bringing the notion of, instead of a project by project, to value stream. Instead of project by project funding to value stream funding.
Wow.
And
then they make the shift?
That is a big mindset shift.
Yeah.
And because the funding is allocated for projects, and then everybody competing for the same funding, everybody putting in requests for their own projects, rather than looking at it as a whole value stream where they can align together on what's the value we are delivering and allocate funding at the value stream level.
Wow. And did they do that?
Yeah, that worked. Whole next year of funding process altered out of that 3-hour workshop.
Wow.
And the second construct I brought in that 3-hour workshop is limiting work in progress, limiting WIP. Yeah. So instead of taking on so many 23 items of projects every 6 months and playing with these millions of dollars like a game, really we have so much fixed capacity, and what are the best features we can deliver that fulfill the value stream, right? And then limiting our our work in progress, so to speak, instead of going from this 23 line items to what are the main values we want to deliver over the next 3 months or 6 months.
Right.
And that's expressed in the form of a roadmap, in safe terms, a product vision and a roadmap that brings clarity to the set of functionalities. Each one is fully viable and tested and usable. Small, thin slices of features that which set of them makes a minimum viable product.
It's cool.
So just two distinctions with 7 or 8 people, senior VPs from different parts of the company, 3 hours, made an enormous impact to how the planning happened the following term.
Right. Yeah, it's all about mindset.
Mindset alteration, right? So it depends. Today I was just coming out of I was working with 5 people on this particular Agile release train. They are the PM and the release train engineer, the key staff at the release train level. And one of the things they were grappling with is like an engineering had its own roadmap, product as a roadmap. More implementation focused, with the milestones and dates for when something is going to go live in implementation. This is more like a aspiration. So I'm like, okay, you don't. Well, only one construct I brought in because this was a 1-hour session. We have one roadmap that has got milestones.
Right.
That has got like different things we can express in it. Right. Which one is complete, which one is in progress, which one belongs to which release. Right. Then we can express the releases. So just bringing that one small distinction as to why do we need 2 roadmaps? This one body represents one program and one value stream, and what's the roadmap going to be for that?
True. That's true. Great. A lot of the audience who's going to watch this are project managers.
Oh.
And for them, what advice would you have for them to survive, thrive, for their careers in this new world? What would you tell them?
Well, I'll tell them to the project managers out there. They really Agile is very simple. It's very easy for you to embrace it because you already have all the skills needed to be a great program manager, and Agile needs that. Agile is not about doing whenever we do whatever we do and not committing to anything. It is actually pretty laser focused on delivering value. And the project managers actually are enormous resource who can actually direct that focus, right, in delivering that value. The one mindset alteration they have to do is going from managing people and tasks to managing agreements that people make to each other. Okay, they don't have to manage the tasks or work breakdown structure or project plan, but the teams and individuals make a commitment on a day-to-day basis or a every 2-week sprint basis. They say, this is our promise, this is our commitment. If the project manager is holding concern at the team level, they just need to watch for what the teams are committing every 2 weeks. Are they honoring their word? Are they keeping their word? What is coming in the way of them keeping their word in delivering on what the 2-week commitment is? If they are playing a role of a scrum master, they just have to watch for what every individual is saying at the daily stand-up. What did they say they did yesterday or they're going to do today? Did they do that the next day? Right? It's about people are brilliant. We don't need to manage them. Right. It is about managing their word, their agreement that they give to us, to others. What is coming in the way of them fulfilling that agreement? That's all they have to consider. Cool. It's very simple. We don't have to worry about are they clocking in 8 hours or are they sitting in their seat and checking this box and all that. Really come from eliminating all those things that doesn't really add value. Right. Ask the question, is this something that adds value to our customers? Who's our customer? What do they care about? Is this something that's going to add value to them? No, then let's not do that.
That's true.
Mostly if you look and see, most of the things that are we call it non-value added tasks. They have come because that's the way we have always done it. It was invented years ago to handle some risk or some issue. It became a habit. But now we can really look and see the project managers. You have an opportunity to question everything and see, is this needed still? Why do we need to do this? What is the reason behind it?
That's true.
What's the policy here?
Mhm. Great. So I have a couple of you know ending questions, but before that, is there anything else that you would like to cover, or that we did not cover, that you want to state?
Um, yeah, like one thing for the project managers or anybody, right? Like Agile is about individuals and interactions
Mm-hmm.
um, more so than sitting in a computer and seeing a chart or something, right? So we call it that. There's a term for it. We call it Gemba in Agile. Gemba is like going to the place where the real work happens. So I highly recommend, right? Like usually, whether they're project managers or regular managers, people managers, I tell them to go and see what the teams are doing. Rather than looking at a chart and a deck or a report, and figuring out, many managers sit in their come in front of their machine and look at the tools, agile tools, to see how their teams are doing or who's under capacity, underutilized, and things like that. But I tell them, just go plug yourself in a 10-minute stand up every day. Be in the back of the room and listen to what your teams are sharing. And you will really get a sense of what is going on in their world, what they're dealing with. And then their role, project manager or resource manager, their role is to remove impediments, is to really look at it from a system thinking beyond where the team normally think, to bring in the big picture context and see what are the impediments coming in the way, remove them, remove them, remove them.
Right.
That's like the only thing I highly recommend. And for the teams, I tell them the same thing. I tell them, go to your customer and sit with them, find out what they're doing, what is bothering them, right? How they're using your solution. Even if it's just for half an hour, watch how they do certain things, and so you can get into their world. Right. So
yeah, I mean, there's so much you absorb when you're in the middle of the action.
Yeah, in Agile we call it the Gemba,
Gemba.
the Gemba walk, or Gemba is getting to the source of it.
Cool.
Real life is happening. Yeah.
Great. So maybe one or two books that you recommend.
Absolutely. It depends. Most for the project managers, I highly recommend the book called Collaboration Explained by Jean Tabaka. She's with Raleigh. It's an excellent book about collaboration, how to bring collaboration in various meetings, various ceremonies. And because project managers, most of them will have opportunities to facilitate a lot of agile ceremonies. In Agile, we call ceremonies are same as meetings, but it's only done in a very collaborative nature, where individuals and interactions are more valued. Communication, collaboration happens, right? So there are ways to conduct meetings and ceremonies. The book clearly amazing. Jean is a very good friend of mine, and I've recommended this book to many project managers, and they found it useful. So for project managers, I highly recommend the Collaboration Explained book. And for if you're my recent favorite is the Phoenix Project by Jean. It's a brilliant book about IT, DevOps, and lots of Kanban is incorporated. To a recent client in Florida, so that's what I told the senior VP of IT. I said, please read this book, and he just sent me an email saying, I've read half of the book. It's very exciting. I see so many things. And so the Phoenix Project is a great book that I recommend. Cool. For anybody, even for project managers, they'll find it very useful.
Great. And one final question is outside work. What are your hobbies, interest? What do you do in your free time?
Well, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, I'm thinking of people and the work I do. Like this is my life, pretty much. I love doing what I'm doing. Right. I tell my clients I'm available 24/7. And I give them my cell phone number. That's one of the personal service they can get from me. Like a small company like mine. Where I care especially for my clients. Their success is important to me, right? So my clients are really free to contact me or text me anytime, and I respond to them, right? But my passion is to see people having the opportunity to be fully self-expressed, so to speak. They're free to free to say what there is to say for them. Not like just saying everything in their.
Without fear, without inhibitions. Yeah.
Yeah, but like without like really like there's yeah, I want everybody's voices to be heard,
Right.
and then free to take action. That they are usually stopped from taking because somebody is going to object or they're going to get into trouble or whatever, right?
Right.
So people are free to be and free to act is my commitment. So when I hear a developer speak up sometimes and ever so gently the first time and
Right.
thinking nobody's going to hear. And then when I create a space where everybody in the room is listening and hear him
Right.
or her, and then the second time he's speaking a little bit more, and the third time he's going to the whiteboard and drawing something
Correct.
where two or three other people follow and they do something amazing.
Right.
But like out of this, what happens is that person no longer knows himself the way he used to know. He now sees himself in a whole new way.
Correct.
Somebody that makes a difference, that knows that he makes a difference, that he's acknowledged for the difference he makes.
Correct.
Right? That moves me. That keeps me going. In order to do my work, I do a lot of meditation, yoga. I'm into juicing. I've got a nice juicer in my home. Juice everything, fruits and vegetables, and then I play with my cats, and that's very relaxing. my dog and cats. So these are the things that I do to support myself in doing what I'm doing.
Great. No, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. It's been wonderful, you sharing your knowledge and all your experiences. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time and calling me. Yes.
Okay.